Hashem ki ani yavdecho v'namosecho.
Try to think at this time what would fit into our Elul plan. And of course, what makes it hard is that for most of us, we've tried many times to correct things and not always with the greatest of success. So there tends to be what we call yush. It tends to be a kind of on a certain level, giving up hope. Like the Gemara talks about giving up hope on a lost object. If once a person does that, it's actually ownerless, and you lose your connection to the object. So you have to be very careful not to give up hope, because giving up hope, it destroys the connection we have to that thing. If Chas V'Shalom give up hope on correcting things, and there are people in this world who have addictions, who have different serious addictions. This year it's become much more of a focus, I think, of people, not necessarily in our immediate community, but I've seen people that I even know who are helping the community, especially in New York. A lot of unfortunate young kids within the Jewish world have succumbed to addiction. It's become much more of an issue, especially because even after many times that they've tried to go through rehab, they often relapse even with the support of the family and everyone trying to help. It's something that they feel they just can't quite overcome. So there is an interesting idea, which I actually saw brought down as a segula for shidduchim in a recent article I read. A Rav was saying that it's brought down that, of course, Hashem works everything mida keneged mida. If we try to do something, Hashem will help us with that thing as well. For example, if I forgive other people, Hashem will be much more forgiving of me. It's a type of way that He set up the world, that we can rely on it to some extent to encourage ourselves to work on things that might be hard to work on. So this person was saying, for example, if somebody helps people who can't have children, right? There's a predicament that people who are married, who have been married sometimes for years, haven't been able to have children, so they have major organizations today. I think one is called Binyan Olam. There's other ones that are out there to try to help with fertility issues and other types of issues involved, and to try to create the right environment or the right conditions for the people to have children. So the person was saying that as a mida keneged mida, if a person is involved in helping others to have children, that's one of the major objectives of marriage, is to have children. So let's say a girl would get involved in one of these organizations, or obviously donating money helps organizations in that respect. So there are different ways to help people have children, but let's say I'm not physically able to help them, but I can donate money, or I can donate time and energy, or daven. He was saying even davening for the people that I know who don't have children, that in a certain respect, you're engaging HaKadosh Baruch Hu in what's called mida keneged mida. You're making it possible for Hashem to turn around and say, what? You're trying to help other people have children, I want to help you have children. Well, obviously Hashem is not going to help a single person have children out of wedlock, chas v'shalom. So what it means, obviously, is He will help the person get married and have children of their own. So sometimes it's not even a very obvious mida keneged mida. Sometimes, like here, I would have thought the way to get married would be help other people get married. But since you look a little bit deeper, you could see there's even a greater objective which I could get involved in, which could still help me mida keneged mida to achieve my goals, as it were. So that even though there's always the idea of doing things lishma, doing things with a pure objective, l'shem shamayim we call it, because I want to do Hashem's Ratzon. That should be my real desire, is to always do mitzvahs just because Hashem asked me, or just because Hashem makes Hashem happy. But we know that our lives are always bettered because if we find different incentives, right? Just like children need an incentive of a prize, that if they do a certain amount of learning, they get a prize or a certain amount of money. We are also a little bit like that we work very well with the incentive program. So sometimes just to get us to work a little bit harder, or a little bit better, a little bit more committed to our goals, we can create an incentive program for ourselves. And it could even be that's one of the reasons why Hashem created that every year we should be judged again. We should go through this whole process again. It's not just because Hashem wants to watch us suffer, get up early and daven slichos and beat our chests and fast and all the different things that are involved in tshuva, but because He's trying to give us that incentive. It's like a friend used to tell me, today, sometimes he'd say it pretty early in the day, today's already a bad day, forget about today. Tomorrow I hope is going to be a good day. I'd say to him, it's not over, today's not over. But sometimes that's how we feel. Today already doesn't seem like I'm having a good day, but hopefully I'll work on tomorrow at least being a good day. So for us, this year is almost over, but hopefully next year will be a bit better. And even though part of the ending of the year should be appreciating everything we've gotten this year, all the money that we've gotten, all the help that we've gotten, all the nachas that we've gotten, that's certainly a big part of ending the year properly, is to appreciate, because if we don't appreciate what Hashem has given us, certainly He doesn't have an incentive, so to speak, to give us more. Hashem doesn't want to give to what's called a kafui tov, someone who denies that he's gotten anything good. So just like a parent has no great incentive to help their child, if the child walks around as if they're entitled and not even appreciating when they get a gift, we have to be very careful not to do that with Hashem. It's part of what we're doing at the end of this year, to appreciate everything they've gotten and to start the year with that same kind of appreciation, that there's no guarantee that we're going to live, there's no guarantee that we'll be healthy, there's no guarantee of anything. Starting a new year is like starting a new leaf. Nothing's written yet. Even though my name is written on my Tudat Zahut, you could imagine that you wake up on New Year's morning and you look at your Tudat Zahut, it's completely blank. Right? It's not like you have any guarantee that you even are alive. You have to get a new lease on life, a new lease on good health, a new lease on good parnasa and nachas and all the things we'd like. So that certainly would lead us to be appreciative, to say, okay, I'm not saying I'm going to live next year because I'm alive today. There's no guarantee that will continue past the first of Tishrei. But I appreciate everything you've given me till now, Hashem. Please continue to give me a gift of life, health, happiness, etc. But as we said before, sometimes we need an incentive to improve our ways. And this is an incredible incentive that Hashem has given us to say, I'm looking at last year as kind of a finished thing. Now we're going to start a new year. Let's try to build up a new kind of image of yourself. And therefore, we can say to Hashem, right now I'm going to try to work towards certain goals that I may not have worked towards in the past. It's a good time to reinforce certain things that have been good in our lives, but to try to instill in ourselves things that we have always wanted to, but have not quite gotten to. So this is a good example where a person would say, till now I've never thought of even helping people have children. Baruch Hashem, I've had a lot of children, Kanai Nahara, or whatever a person might say, or most of the people I know have children. But once in a while you meet someone who didn't have any children yet, or you hear about a story or whatever. But who would think that we should daven for those people? Who would think that we should work towards helping those people? I'm not saying you should go out and give your time to that kind of cause. It might be you have other causes which are closer to you. But I'm saying at least to keep it in mind that this could be a way to help people find shidduchim, for example, as a midah keneged midah. So this is a time to open up different channels, different ways of thinking, I want Hashem to help me with different things. What could I do in a Mida Keneged Mida way to bring about that goal? Right? For example, a simple thing. I want to increase my learning. I want to understand things better. Do I try to help the people around me to understand better? Do I make any effort with the people who live in my little Dalit Amos? Is there anyone I know, even through a letter today? You could send a WhatsApp, you could send an email, you could send anything, to even a small thing, to bring someone's awareness of God or awareness of Torah or a halacha that might not be well known to that person in a nice way that would make them want to learn it. Just the learning is a valuable thing, and maybe even be mekayim it. I met someone in South Africa who told me he's getting into learning, and then the guy wasn't wearing any kippah, but that's very common down there. And he was very excited about his learning. And that's one of the reasons I like going there, is because people are very excited about their learning. And he was telling me all about Yibum, Chalitza, this and that. He's learning Masechah Sota, right? And then he says in the middle, by the way, Rabbi, you should know I'm Machal Shabbos. Right? Not that he was really proud of it, but he was like, his meat of emes. He wanted to tell me what was going on. So I told him, I said, look, he put in a little hint to what maybe the part of the problem is. I remember we once had a Talmud like that in this yeshiva, who was becoming more firm, but his family was not at all on board. And the hard fact of that it's like the family looks down on the person, the family's making fun of the person, the family's annoyed with this person for not doing stuff. So it's very, very hard in that situation for anybody who wants to do tshuva, and the rest of their family, we all know that as well from a more distant point of view. Even when we have distant relatives who aren't from, they sometimes make us feel uncomfortable that we're making strides in our Yiddishkeit. But certainly if it's within the house, his own wife, his own children are not really on board, very, very hard for this person. So I told him one simple thing that somebody once told me that I could tell people, which I think is just an interesting way of thinking, that you may not be capable of keeping all of Shabbos, but at least one small part of Shabbos you could keep. And there is a precedent for this. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter once did this when he became a Rav of a seaport town in Germany called Memel. I may have spoken about this before. I think it's an incredible story about Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, who's one of the greatest Musar. He created the Musar movement, called the Musar movement, and to a certain extent, which you want to see his handiwork. I heard Simcha Wasserman said, go to South Africa, you see all the people there with their midos tovos. That's all because of Rabbi Yisrael Salanter. That's like what he indoctrinated in the Lithuanian community, which ended up down. But anyhow, so he was a genius. He was a genius in psychology. He was a genius in human beings' ability to grow and how to try to cultivate it. So he realized this whole town is working on Shabbos, or many people in town are working on Shabbos, and they used to go to shul as well as going to work, as many people have done in the past. And so he decided he's not going to hit it head on. He's going to try to see if he can put a dent in it and change the course of that town's Yiddishkeit in a slower way, in a less direct way. So he started by telling them that I know you guys work on Shabbos. I'm not going to tell you not to work on Shabbos, but I'm going to ask you for one favor, that you work in the port, and when a load comes in, you're supposed to write down what came in. If you don't mind, and put that off till Motzi Shabbos. That's all I'm asking. So they walked out of shul very happy that they have a nice Rav now who doesn't yell at them for doing Chal Shabbos, and doesn't even tell them that they have to stop everything. But it made this one request, so they decided they're going to try to do it. A lot of people tried to do it, and they were successful. And then a few months later, he said, you know, you're so successful in that, can I ask you for one more favor, that if a ship has to be loaded up to leave, you can't push that off. But if a ship comes in that has to be unloaded, sometimes you can push that off. Try again to push that off till Motzi Shabbos. And each time he tried in a very subtle way to get them more involved in Hilchos Shabbos and keeping Shabbos. And eventually he made a very big inroad in the town, became much more Shomer Shabbos because of his brilliant subterfuge, we could call it. But that's a way that sometimes we have of helping other people. So this one Rosh Kol told me to tell a relative to try on Shabbos to eat bread 3 times a day. Right? Try to eat bread 3 times on Shabbos, because that's not a hard thing to do. That's not like, oh my gosh, have to eat 3 times a day, 3 times on Shabbos to eat a slice of bread. Sorry? I thought someone said something. In any event, so what he hoped to accomplish was, because that is a mitzvah on Shabbos, to eat 3 meals of bread on Shabbos. And not only that, the Gemara says that you can be saved if you eat 3 meals of Shabbos from what's called the different birth pangs of Mashiach, which we're experiencing many of them in our day. And the truth of the matter is, like Rabbi Yisrael Salanter knew, if you get them to do a certain amount of Hilchos Shabbos, sometimes just the Kedusha, that even that small part of the mitzvah could help them to move on to higher levels, right? Like we say, mitzvah goreris mitzvah. Doing one mitzvah gives you the energy to do another mitzvah, gives you the cheshik to want to do more mitzvahs. So sometimes you just get the ball rolling, and it picks up momentum, and it turns into like it snowballs into a much larger form of Shmir Shabbos, like Rabbi Yisrael Salanter knew. So sometimes even little things like that, we say to Hashem, look, I'm trying to increase my Yiddishkeit. It's very hard for me to change my ways, very hard for me to even learn more Torah. I'm trying, but it's very hard. I'm already learning a lot, or I feel I'm doing a lot. But again, we need Siyata D'Shmaya to do more than what we're capable of now. It's kind of like breaking like a natural barrier, as it were, that we do experience these barriers in life. We don't feel we can go farther. But Hashem could help us to go past that, right? Like the 4-minute mile, and things that seemed to be natural barriers at one point, and then all of a sudden it became possible. So I used to experience that when I used to swim competitively, and then they time it to hundredths of a second, and you're practicing the whole week, and when you swim, you think you're swimming your fastest, you're sure you're breaking your old record, and you touch the thing, and you look up at the time, which is to the 100th of a second. It's the exact same thing you did for the last 10 times. How could that be? You reach a kind of plateau, you reach a kind of a barrier that you feel, and then all of a sudden, if you keep trying, all of a sudden, like a whole second gets shaved off your time, which is like incredible. If every time you're doing to the 100th of a second the exact same time, then all of a sudden a whole second gets shaved off. It sounds like a small amount, but it's basically shaved off 100 hundredths of a second in one go, when you haven't been able to do any of that for a long period of time, because that's the way it is. Sometimes you've reached a barrier, you've reached a plateau, as we call it, and you don't feel you can go on, and sometimes it does require new Siyata D'Shmaya. So we're trying to talk about opening up new doors of Siyata D'Shmaya, new pipelines, right? Like the Alaskan pipeline, like the Canadian pipeline. We're trying to open up a new pipeline. So how can we open up those new pipelines? We have to try new methods of Shmaya. So if I want more Siyata D'Shmaya in my learning, well, maybe I should teach a few extra people, right? And it doesn't have to be like a huge thing, like an hour a day. It could be just a little bit. You're in a cab, or you're on a bus, you're talking to someone, and you just think, what halacha could I teach this person without it seeming strange, or without the person freaking out, and that would actually fit in very nicely. And sometimes if you ask for Siyata D'Shmaya, you can find even small things to help the people around you. And certainly if you live in a certain place and you know someone's not really learning that much, and you ask them on Shabbos, could we learn for a half hour? Once a week we learn together. Sometimes you can have Siyata D'Shmaya, or like I said, on email or on Skype or on any of these things that we have today, on the telephone. My sister has a chavrusa on the telephone. A lot of people in America have these chavrusa systems that get set up on the phone. How many of our relatives could we learn with on the phone if we just set up a 5-minute learning seder with them? But it's not easy, it's a little bit hard, but that's what if we try to reach out like that, we could actually evoke this Siyata D'Shmaya that we need for a breakthrough in our learning, and to help us do more than we had physically thought possible. We're at a plateau now, we're trying hard, we're coming every day to Tzamanash, we're doing as much as we can. We want a breakthrough, we want to go a breakthrough in our abilities, or a breakthrough in our time management, or whatever it is, and this is one of the ways to evoke that. that's the whole year round. But certainly at this time of year, that Elul is called Yemei Ratzon. Yemei Ratzon means it's a special time when Hashem has extra ratzon, has extra desire to help us. If you think of Moshe Rabbeinu up for the third 40-day period in Shemayim and trying to accomplish the impossible, because Hashem had already given the luchos, and Moshe broke them because the nation didn't deserve them. Because right at the time of like the marriage of Klal Yisrael, you can imagine a woman committing adultery right under the chuppah. It would be the worst possible scenario. And yet that's what Hashem looked at, our committing idolatry at Har Sinai in the same, because I'll use that mushal. And therefore, it seems like it's impossible that Hashem would want to give us the luchos again. It's impossible that Hashem would give us a situation where we come back and be close to Him. And yet, Moshe Rabbeinu did it. The third 40-day period culminated in Yom Kippur, when Hashem declared, Salachti ki devarecha, I have forgiven everyone according to what you asked. And that's and then we got the Mishkan. Eventually, it was built 6 months later, but they started building the pieces to it right away. And that's incredible. That's an incredible change in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Hanhaga. Right? Something should have never, like Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu, he really had a desire to destroy the entire nation and start again from Moshe Rabbeinu. But that's certainly a barrier that seemed like one could never break. That desire of Hashem to reject Klal Yisrael, and certainly never to bring them back to the level they had been on. But yet Moshe Rabbeinu used this time, this Elul period leading up to Yom Kippur, to do just that, to keep trying, to keep using his different forms of tefillah, different forms of asking for forgiveness, and committing himself to learning the Torah all over again, that we should be given another chance. So even though right now we're after the luchos broke, so we forget our Torah more easily, the Gemara says, and a lot of things are more difficult, and certain punishments which were because of the Chet Egel are still haunting us to this day. Hashem puts a little bit of punishment for the Chet Egel in everything we do, but in the end of the day, we retained a certain closeness to Hashem, and that was evidenced later in the building of the Mishkan and returning of the Shekhinah. In fact, the Vilna Gaon says that that's why Sukkot is a few days after Yom Kippur, because it represents Hashem returning the Ananei Kavod. He claims the Ananei Kavod went away after the Chet Egel as a sign that Hashem was distant from them. But as soon as they finished building all the pieces to the Mishkan, donating to the Mishkan, it says that they kept donating day after day. According to the Vilna Gaon, when they were finally finished donating and it was all ready to be built, it was the 15th of Tishrei, 5 days later, and that's when the Ananei Kavod returned, and therefore that's why we celebrate Sukkot on the 15th of Tishrei. But we see that they went back to a very high level, maybe not as close as the beginning, but a much closer time to Hashem than they could have achieved on their own, because of this special segula, as it were, of Elul. As we say, Nila Dodi V'Dodi Liba, two people having a relationship with each other that's very, very close. So this is a time we know, and I'm not really saying any Kiddushim here, but it's a time to open up a few extra channels of Siyata D'Shmaya that we may have not exhausted in the past. And so, as I was mentioning before, Rabbi Lev is trying to bring more people in the yeshiva, and that also, I think, is part of our Siyata D'Shmaya. It could be in trying not just to teach people around us, but trying to bring people to our yeshiva. We know that when people come here, they very often realize they could accomplish things that they didn't realize they could accomplish before. And if we bring people here, just like we spoke about before, helping people to have children could help a girl find a shidduch, mida keneged mida. I think it's the Chassam Sofer who said that. And in the same way, if we try to help others with their learning, which perhaps bring them to the yeshiva is the greatest way of helping them with their learning, then we could get much more siyata d'shmaya in our learning and our avodas Hashem. So, as I said before, it's a good opportunity to help. We also know the famous rule of Yudriso Salanter on approaching Yom Adin, which is that the individual on Yom Adin always has a supper. nobody ever is guaranteed that he's going to live the next year. But the nation, as a Jewish nation, the nation is guaranteed. There's no question the Jewish nation will always survive. Hashem will never completely abandon us, as we said, and he'll always bring us back. So every Rosh Hashanah, if I'm only an individual, it's pretty thin ice. I'm on pretty thin ice. I'm hoping that I'll be good enough, but who knows. But the more that I represent the Jewish nation, the more that I am approaching Hashem to give me another year as part of the Jewish nation, and we really feel that I'm not just an individual with my own little concerns, but I'm actually part of the Jewish nation, and my life is devoted to helping the Jewish nation. And by the way, if anyone ever wants to feel what that's like, go on a trip collecting for the yeshiva. Then you feel like, what am I doing asking this person for money? What am I doing all over in a country that these people don't even know me? You realize it's only explicable if I'm really doing something for the Jewish nation. And that's the only way I can even approach these people, is to say that I think the Jewish nation needs more Torah, needs this kind of yeshiva where we're helping people with their skills. So the more that we think of helping the Jewish nation, then we have a guarantee. Of course, we may still not do enough to really merit to be like the Jewish nation with a pure guarantee from Hashem, but the more that we do that, the more of a guarantee we have. If I'm really working for the Jewish nation, if I represent, in a sense, the Hatzlach of the Jewish nation, if my efforts are always for the sake of the Jewish nation, then Hashem says, that guy is very good for the company. The company needs that guy. I'm going to give him a promotion, right? Or I'm not going to lay him off. I was going to lay a lot of people off, right? Being laid off by Hashem, by the way, means, 6 feet under, right? So if Hashem lays us off, we don't want to be laid off, right? We want to keep our jobs. And we would like even to be promoted. So, like in any company, the head of the company says, look, is this person helping the company or is he not helping the company? Is this person adding, contributing? Is he vital to the company? Is he not vital to the company? Is he loafing off and just living off the fat of the land and basically taking away from others? Let's get rid of him, right? And unfortunately, we see that all the time. Even when we have two companies merging, right? There's always the ones who are more expedient, or whatever you call it, they are laid off. So we don't want to be in that category. We want to be in the category, like Rabbi Yisrael Salanter said, that the boss wants to keep us on. The boss sees us an integral part of his company, of his effort. And the Jewish nation is the company of Hashem. That is where, right? You're in good company, right? That if you are working for the Jewish nation. So obviously, my opinion would be, the more you help a yeshiva like this, where our whole existence is to help the Jewish nation, albeit in a small way at this point, but that's what I tell anyone I meet, is that we're trying very, very hard to break out of our shell, break out of our small miniature level, and to somehow become a worldwide organization of helping Jews all over the world. But it may take a lot longer than I thought to do that. But in any event, if that's our effort, if our effort is to help the Jewish nation, I want to help the Jewish nation, which, by the way, doesn't just mean Jews in America. It means any Jew who I could help to bring them to the yeshiva, or to pay to help people like Reb Levitt bring them to the yeshiva, anything to help Klal Yisrael achieve a higher status, to be a better company for Hashem. That is certainly called helping the company and being a vital part of Hashem's plan. So it's this kind of working together that I think Hashem looks down and he gets very excited when he sees people working together. And that's why I am very happy, as I said the other day on my birthday, when many people came in to help me. Is that censored? To help me eat all the cupcakes and to celebrate my birthday. Thank Hashem collectively for the beautiful friendship which I feel that we have in the yeshiva, and the teamwork which I feel we have, that people like to help each other, like to think for each other, to help how we can help the other person. That is a tremendous warm feeling that I think Hashem would have as well, looking down and seeing us working together as a unit, as a team. So I think this is the best game plan I could advise, is to continue each person growing in the way that I've seen all of you grow. I'm very proud of you, and also I am very thankful for each one of you, how you do help in your own way, each person in his own way to help the yeshiva grow. And I also want to open up another channel, which is that if anyone has anything they feel that I need to work on as a Rosh Yeshiva, or that the yeshiva needs to improve on, please let me know, because this is the time of the year to grow in that respect as well. So again, if we work together and we all feel like we're helping Klal Yisrael, I think we have a very, very good chance of having a good Yom Adin. Of course, we have to daven, we have to do tshuva. It's not a replacement for these things, but it's to help, as it were, to fill up the tank, to give us more energy, to give us more siyata d'shmaya, to try to evoke Hashem's midah keneged midah. And anything that we really want, we should have to stop and think, how could I help other people in that area, even in a more indirect way, like we said, with the helping people have children could be an indirect way of evoking siyata d'shmaya for shidduchim. Anything I can do, anything that I want to achieve, let me think of how I can help other people to achieve that and evoke some kind of siyata d'shmaya, of course with tefillah, with tshuva and everything else, to try to have Bezrat Hashem, a good Elul and a good Yom Adin and Yemei Ratzon that we're in, and a Shana Tova, a Masuka, a very sweet new year, both for ourselves and for all of Klal Yisrael. And as we know that no matter what we do, it's not just helping us. Mitzvahs go up to Shemayim, and it helps all of Klal Yisrael. And as we certainly need it as a nation, a much more sweeter year in the new year to come, and perhaps even Mashiach should come, B'Mirav Yimei.
Oshiv Lashem Kol Tagmulo Yolo Ois Yeshua Yiseso Uveshem Hashem